I stood in the baseball diamond of the school and watched search parties comb the hills for me. The one thing I wanted to do above all else, run far, far away, I was totally unable to do. My son, my poor mutilated boy, shivered now that his rage fever had cooled. I did the only thing left to me. I went home. I made a game of it, sneaking through our town. I told my son if we were caught, we would lose, leaving out what exactly we would lose. He loved it, held my hand throughout the whole game. The front door of our house hung open and crooked on its hinges. I made Joshua wait in the bushes, while I made sure the way was clear. The inside of the house was trashed. Apparently my absence hadn't gone unnoticed. The walls of my front hall were no longer blank. Someone had spray-painted crude clown figures not only over the original mural space, but over every wall and part of the ceiling. I made sure to go through every room, jabbing my knife into spaces where people could hide. I found no one. Many of my personal belongings were smashed. Joshua's goldfish lay dead on the ground in a wet stain of his destroyed tank. In the ruins of these things were more clown statues, grinning like they were the ones that had done the smashing. I gestured Joshua in. I told Joshua the lights were broken, that we were going to play a special game now. I made it look like we had come back to ransack the house for supplies. I took things and tied them up in a bundle with one of my sheets. I put a line of pillows beneath mine and Joshua's covers so it looked like someone was sleeping there. I gathered up a sleeping bag, a lantern, the food, and Josh's plastic canteen. And then I hid us both in the basement. I arranged the boxes I had yet to unpack so that they hid us from sight. I was smart enough not to lock the door. Locking it would just bring more questions. I wanted them to think I was attempting a journey. I wanted them to look for me anywhere but the house. I told Joshua that we were still playing our game, that now we had to hide in the basement. If he heard any grown-up calling his name, he had to remain completely silent. If he made any noise, we lost. I slept what was left of that night with my son in my arms. It nearly felt like we were a family again. I woke up the next morning, and Josh was gone. I made the mistake in my planning. The door was still firmly shut, and my noise-making trap of tin cans scattered above the top step remained in place. But one of the small basement windows gaped open. It had been locked from the inside. I told him not to listen to grown-ups calling his name, but hadn't cautioned him against children calling him, as only children could do. I went upstairs to arm myself. Through my open front door I spied one of the two Clanton cops, the one who sulked on my lawn while his partner threatened me. Too late to draw back, he saw me. I walked up and had my hand on the doorknob before he could just walk in. The cop was a Ted or Dylan, it didn't matter, did his best to intimidate me, leaning over and breathing rank coffee breath in my face. "Little lady," he said, "you're in a heap of trouble." I laughed. "I mean it. I got some questions you need to answer." He put his hand on the door. I smiled at him. "Until I see your badge or gun, you're not coming in." He scowled. He wasn't as physically intimidating as his partner, and probably knew it. The cop turned so that I could see the handgun holster at his belt. Just as I suspected, they had no badges, probably no more authority than the town folks brought them. My smile widened. "That's neat. You ever shot anyone with it? You think you even know how?" I was babbling. I only gotten a few hours of sleep and couldn't remember when I had last eaten. The cop shoved the door, so I stepped back and let him intrude. "Excuse the mess. I guess I'm not the best housekeeper in the world." I looked him dead in the eyes as I pushed a clown off the bookshelf so it broke on the floor. "Can I get you something? Coffee? Whiskey? Some bullets?" He looked me up and down, not sure of what to make of me. "I'll have a cup." You have one too. Have a couple. I made him sit in the living room on a hard-back chair because someone had slashed the couch and all its stuffing was bleeding out. I kept up the stream of talk as I went to the kitchen to start a pot of coffee. I'd have you say hi to Josh, but I can't seem to find him this morning, I called as I rummaged through the drawers. It's Missy Jackson's birthday party. He got an invitation. Really? A birthday? Must be a big occasion. Are the banks closed? You're in a lot of trouble, ma'am. I hope you know that. I know I must look a mess. I peeked out of the kitchen at him. The chair's back was turned to me. It's tough being a single mother. My hair must look like I slept in a bush. He glared at me. I'm serious. You know what you are? A shit stirrer. We've never had this much trouble, not with anyone else. You think you can do what you want. We are a family here, and we take care of our own, and I'm here to find out if you're one of us or a tourist? I went to the knife block and drew out one that had been an anniversary gift for my husband. It was an expensive one. The metal looked like wood grain. The weight felt nice in my hand. I don't know. It doesn't feel like I'm on vacation. Do I seem more tan to you? Ted thinks you're an unfit mother. So this one's Dylan. He says we're in our rights to appropriate custody from you, seeing as you're acting erratically. I wanted to speak with you, see one last time whether you'll listen to reason. That's generous of you. Do you like your coffee black or with cream? I said as I stabbed him in the neck. He buckled over, grasping the wound with shocked look on his face. I stabbed the other side, then the back of his head. Dylan slumped over and bled out on my living room rug. I watched him die and tried to figure out why I didn't feel anything. I came to the conclusion that it didn't really matter, and that I needed to get my son. Spencer Jackson had the biggest house in town. I didn't even need directions because I knew where it would be. Dead center in the middle of Clowntown. The place where the only road ended. The road that was completely deserted as I set off on my journey. Bloody knife in hand and 3 more hidden around my body. It looked like the entire town emptied out for Missy Jackson's birthday. No shocker there. The Jacksons' house was a large brick mansion with a lawn the size of a state park. The lawn was covered with people talking, drinking, pretending to have a good time, and into this I brought my madness. I walked right up to the party and started screaming my son's name. Joshua! Joshua! Every adult within earshot looked at me with panic. I could see where the children were playing in a fenced-off area separate from the adults, and pushed my way through the crowd. They tried blocking me with their bodies, but once I brought up the knife, they parted like the Red Sea. I laughed at that. I found just about everything funny. Nothing felt real anymore. Spencer was up on the deck with his cronies wearing a tuxedo, very much like the one in the picture. "Mrs. Hughes!" he yelled out at me. "What in God's name do you think you're doing?" I didn't answer, just made a beeline for the children. Other parents stood around like a bunch of statues, terrified looks on their faces. The children had been playing their cruel games with a pile of stuffed animals that were being disintegrated into a pile of fluff. My son was in the corner of the fenced area, being pinned back by the same kids I had seen around Missy Jackson from time to time. I nodded to them. "Let Joshua come to me." One boy, whose mouth was so twisted he could barely close it, sneered at me. "No." I held up my blood-stained knife. "Want to see something cool?" Their eyes lit up, and they released Joshua, who took about 2 steps towards me before getting sidetracked by the pile of stuffed animals. "Joshua," I said, "come to me." He frowned. "But I want to play." "Remember what I told you last night? We need to go now." The adults all hung back from the children's pen a good 50 yards. Cowards. Missy Jackson pushed her way through the crowd, carrying a pincushion with some wicked-looking hat pins. She was wearing the dress that, if wasn't the one from the photograph, was very similar. She grimaced at me. "Go away, stupid lady. I want to play with a new boy. His name is Joshua, and I say you can't play with him. I wanna. Well, you can't. Go away so I can play with him." "Why did you make him come here?" I asked. "Is it because you're so ugly no one else wants to play with you?" I could hear snickering from the children behind me. Missy turned a bright red, redder than I had ever seen a human being go. I smelled something hot and chemical. Spencer Jackson appeared behind his daughter, immediately going into appeasement mode. "Missy, darling, let's go open your presents. You have lots of lovely new toys." Missy didn't let up. "I want a new boy, Daddy. Get him for me or I'll blow up." Spencer wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. He looked at me. I smiled. "Joshua, come to Mommy." My son still hesitated. "Joshua, I am leaving." His little face fell. "Mommy, don't leave. Mommy, don't leave," he chanted as he hopped the little fence and ran to grasp my side. "I don't think you appreciate the gravity of what you're doing," Spencer hissed at me. He tried to grab my son's arm, but I nicked his hand with my knife. "I know what I'm doing," I said. "I'm taking my son and I'm leaving, and none of you are going to stop me." "Are you crazy? You walk into my daughter's party with a knife, demanding your son stop playing a harmless party game?" He shook his head. "I am well within my rights to call the authorities." "Who? The cops?" I grinned. "I'll wait here. Hell, I'll even dial. We wouldn't want this to blow up, would we?" His face fell as he finally realized that I knew. "You're putting us all in danger, your son included. Come inside and let's discuss this like adults." "No thanks," I said, jabbing the knife at him so he fell back. "I'm done talking to you." Missy was so red she practically steamed. Her eyes disappeared into the folds of her skin around them. "I want a new boy," she hissed. "I want him. Denise!" We all looked up. There was Arthur Brown jogging up with his hand pressed to his side. He had done the day's grease paint in a hurry. It was lopsided. "I'll take care of this," he said, holding his hand up. "Go wait for me out front." Spencer stomped between us. "What the hell are you doing here, clown?" Arthur glared at him. "Saving your ass. Shut up and do nothing. It's what you're good at." "I want to play." "Is this your idea? We're going to have to curtail some of your privileges." "Privileges?" Arthur laughed. "What privileges? You pretend I don't exist. I'm the one that raises your goddamn kids for you, asshole." "Clown, play with me." "Missy, not now. Listen, if you don't defuse this situation, we're going to have to reconsider not turning you in for your son's death. Don't you dare bring my son into this." Missy shrieked so loud my eardrums hurt. She didn't go boom, no, she did the last thing I'd have expected. She snatched the knife out of my hand. "Clown, not funny!" she screamed and rammed it into Arthur's gut. All noise stopped. Arthur made eye contact with me. I remember seeing a whole range of emotions pass through his eyes at the last second. But what stuck with me the most was the last. Relief. Arthur Brown slumped to the ground, blood seeping through his only shirt and staining his polka-dotted clown suspenders. Clanton's only living, breathing clown lay dead at my feet, and behind me I could hear a rush as all the children of Clanton took a sharp breath.